sports. Huge slate on the hardwood tonight as well, guys. 13 gamer. This is our NBA building block segment. Garion, we're going to start with you, see if there's anyone you're building around at center tonight. But, you know, with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, Rudy Gobert being your big names, obviously, I'm not sure any of them is in a great spot.
I mean, there's a lot of names on this slate. As you mentioned, it is one of the bigger slates we've had all season, so there really isn't any shortage of intriguing options. So I'm not really going to go with a guy at the top end. I'm going to stick with someone in the middle tier. And really, it's just picking on the Charlotte Hornets, who tend to be one of the better DFS matchups we've had all season long. They just play at such a frenetic pace. They are not a good defensive team. It really helps out their opponents, even when their opponent is the Orlando Magic. I like Mo Bamba at $6,400. Wasn't really in a great spot in their last couple games against the Bucks. That's just not a situation where Mo Bamba is going to thrive, but we've seen him have good games against Charlotte already this season. Went off for 37 DraftKings points when these two teams met up back in late November, and there's a reason Charlotte just bleeds fantasy points to opposing centers. They're giving up the third most opponent rebounds per 100 possessions so far this season, while they're also giving up the fourth most points in the paint per game so far this season. I mentioned that they run at such a high pace, the fastest pace of any team in the Eastern Conference. They just raise the floor and the ceiling of a team like Orlando. So I think Mo Bamba's in a pretty good spot tonight.
See, Matt, I wasn't sure if he was going to go with Bamba or Wendell Carter Jr.
Yeah, I think those are both good choices. Honestly, right now, it seems like everyone on Orlando is a good play. One, because the matchup against Charlotte, and then also Cole Anthony's out. So you just have more to go around for everybody. And Orlando does seem just generally underpriced. I think just to find a lower owned guy, Jakob Poeltl at 5,700 in that same mid tier, he doesn't have a great matchup against the Hawks. I just think this is a price that's too low for him if he gets full minutes. So Poeltl was out for a while for COVID protocols. He came back, his price was like $7K because he had been playing really, really well before leaving the team. And now he's back, he's been playing limited minutes, but if he gets back to full minutes, which will happen at some point, I mean, he's the best center on the Spurs roster. The price tag has come down to the point where he's dramatically underpriced if he gets the full minutes. So we still don't know that for sure. I think it's a little speculative, but this is also a matchup where it's not necessarily a good one, but you need his size with the rebounding of Clint Capella on the other team. I think this could be the game where we see his minutes go back up.
Matt, I mentioned Giannis AD. They're center eligible, forward eligible as well. We'll go to the forward position. Some other big names that are available that are more specifically forwards. Again, Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, DeMar DeRozan, guys like that. But again, you look at the positions these guys are in, not unlike center, it seems like more of a maybe mid-tier to value night. What do you think?
I think that might be true. And Wendell Carter, who is forward eligible also, unlike Bamba, it could be a popular choice here. But I actually think Anthony Davis might not play tonight. And that's going to make things a lot more interesting for Domantas Sabonis, who, even if Davis is in, like, he has plenty of upside anyway. But you take Davis off the Lakers, and the interior defense just is going to deteriorate. So I think that is something that could get overlooked if Davis does wind up not playing because of rest. LeBron is back after the suspension. This is a back-to-back. They don't need Davis necessarily. I think we all saw how much he struggled last night. That was a Russell Westbrook night against the Knicks. Davis was not very good. So if he doesn't play, then I think we see Sabonis just do really well with guys like DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard, who are going to have a hard time keeping up with him. So this might be my favorite pay-up option on the slate because I think he goes a little bit overlooked in what could be a really good matchup.
Garion, this is where I cross my fingers and hope that you just start celebrating all that is good about Franz Wagner.
No, we'll get off the Magic for a second here. We can just go with Jason Tatum, I think, at 10,100. Obviously, he's going to be very popular if Jaylen Brown is eventually ruled out, which is why I'd almost like Tatum even more if Brown ends up playing. But there's a lot of questionable tags to be watching heading into this slate. I think there's 18 to 22 relatively high-profile guys with a questionable tag right now, and you're going to have that on a slate like this. So Tatum has just really found himself in the month of November. It started slow this season, but he's averaging basically 29 points per game and 1.4 DraftKings points per minute across his last 9 games. And again, a lot of that has been without Jaylen Brown on the court, but we know that Tatum can still be one of the best fantasy contributors playing alongside Jaylen. This isn't Jaylen dependent, I guess is the point I want to make. Mm-hmm. And we've already got a situation where Tatum is 4th in the NBA in minutes per game. He's playing almost 37 minutes per contest, and this should be a relatively close script against the Nets. You think this is a game the Celtics are going to want to win. They maybe push their starters a little bit more than they usually would. So I wouldn't be shocked if maybe we're looking at 39 or 40 minutes from Tatum tonight if things get really, really good against the Nets. So I just think the ceiling is really high with a guy like Tatum, and I'm willing to pay that price.
We'll stick with you here, Garion. Most of the guards with building block potential, it's the higher price ones are pretty much specifically point guards. Again, there's Steph Curry, there's James Harden, DeJounte Murray, John Morant, Damian Lillard. But you want to go down a little bit. C.J. McCollum was great last night. Granted, it's a back-to-back, but he's in a good spot. You could also make a case certainly for Russell Westbrook if, in fact, AD is ruled out. So where are you looking?
I'll go a little lower than that. Fred VanVleet is arguably in the best spot a point guard could be in. He's going up against the Memphis Grizzlies, who are the worst defensive team in basketball. They give up the most assist opportunities per 100 possessions so far this season, and they're not even relatively close in any of these categories. You might want to keep an eye on whether or not OG Anunoby is playing in this game. There's not really a whole lot of crossover between VanVleet's usage and Anunoby's usage, but he's just another relatively high usage player on the Raptors. I guess if you're really wanting to buy into VanVleet, you'd prefer Anunoby not be ruled active for this game. But again, I don't think it really matters all that much. VanVleet leads the NBA in minutes per game. There is no situation where Nick Nurse is willing to take this guy off the court. His last 10 games, his minutes log reads 37, 43, 37, 41, 36, 40, 40, 34, 32, 39. And the only reason that 32 is there is because they beat the Kings by 35 points. And he still played 32 minutes. So VanVleet is just a volume god. I think anytime below he's 8,000, he's definitely tempting. And if he's below 8,000 against the Grizzlies, I think he's almost a must-play.
Honestly, Matt, I wondered if you would shout out Jalen Suggs. Who do you like tonight?
I might have to, because the player that I have written down to talk about here is Fred VanVleet. Like Garion just said everything I was going to say. So, I totally agree with all of that. So I'll give a different pick for Orlando because Suggs is the clear value play. I think he's probably the best point per dollar guy on the slate. He's 4,800, which I think it's too low in general. And then Cole Anthony's not playing, so it's a lot lower than what Suggs should be. We have one injury update we're waiting for there with Gary Harris. If he doesn't play, that's more minutes for RJ Hampton, who's about the same price as Suggs. And then I think the other benefit to Hampton for GPPs is that's some leverage. If Suggs were to struggle and get benched or get in foul trouble, any of that stuff, I think Hampton's the guy that would take over to a large extent. So if you're playing cash games, I think Suggs is the guy at guard. And maybe for GPPs, you just pivot straight to Hampton, who is 4,900 compared to Suggs 4,800.
Before I let you guys go, let's switch things up a little bit. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook and take a look at your favorite bet tonight. Garion, start us off. What do you like?
I'm going to go right back to that Raptors-Grizzlies game and take the over. It's 219.5, which is actually a pretty high total this season. The totals have fallen off a cliff the last couple of weeks as the NBA has picked up, or the books have picked up on the fact that none of these games are hitting the over. So this is a pretty big number, but I'm willing to take a chance here because if you look across the last 10 games, the teams that rank dead last and second last in defensive rating are the Raptors and the Grizzlies. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of defense in this game. The Raptors have been scoring points much more efficiently since Pascal Siakam came back. You've just got two relatively trustworthy offensive teams and two terrible defensive teams going tonight. So I think we get over 220.
Matt, you're up.
So I really wish we did this stream at 11 p.m. last night instead of 11 a.m. today because the Lakers-Pacers line opened last night with Indiana -1. The line is now -4. And I don't think that has anything to do with Anthony Davis. I think it's because the Lakers are just not good. And even though LeBron is returning from his suspension tonight, I think the Pacers at full strength are better than the Lakers at full strength. We're getting to the point now with this line where if both teams are fully healthy, it's probably approaching fair. But the thing is, I mentioned before, Anthony Davis could get the night off for rest because he had to carry the team in the second half against Detroit when LeBron got thrown out. And then he played a full game last night against the Knicks. Now they're traveling from New York to Indiana. He was dealing with an illness. It adds up that Anthony Davis might sit. So if he doesn't play, I still think -4 for the Pacers is a good bet, even though the line's already moved so much.